Always a pleasure to be joined by top-ranked bantamweight Cory Sandhagen. Cory, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. I saw you post like part of an Instagram post, like your stitches and kind of the aftermath of the surgery. So how's your arm?
It's okay. I got my second surgery last Monday. So I get my stitches out tomorrow, and then I'm good to kind of start drilling and do a little bit more martial arts type of stuff, which is going to be really, really nice because I'm starting to sink into a hole in the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, tomorrow I get to kind of get back into it. It's still kind of slow, but I'm excited to be doing that.
Hang on, second surgery, was that, did you know, like, was there a complication in the first one, or why did you do a second one?
No, so the reason that the first one, the tricep even tore in general is just because I've been having a bunch of floating bones in there, and then they were just recently, like this year, starting to cause a bunch of bursitis. My bursitis got infected, and then it was infected. I was on antibiotics all the way up until fight week, and then fight week I went in, and then that's why it tore all easy. That's what the doctor explained to me anyway. So the loose bones were what needed to come out anyways. I already had that surgery scheduled even before I even went into the fight. Not that it was messed up, but it was something that if I just kept letting it go on, it was just going to be bursitis as long as the bones were in there. So the first surgery was for the tricep repair, and then the second one was to get the bones out, which I needed to do anyways.
Oh, okay. And I know at the time you said you didn't really know what happened in the fight. If you've watched the fight back, do you still not know exactly when it happened in the fight?
No, I honestly have no idea. It's kind of like yeah, it's kind of hard I think to communicate to people because when you're in a fight, it's not that you feel pain as much as you just have unawareness about certain things that are going on that you don't really use words to describe really like in your head because things are happening very quickly. But when I was in the fight, all I recall is there was some type of scramble on the ground after I had taken him down the first time. When we stood back up, I threw a punch with my right hand and I was like, ooh, that feels weird. And then I continued to fight. I threw it again and I was like, all right, I probably shouldn't use that anymore. And then just knowing that bursitis and the infection and all of that stuff was happening leading up to the fight, I just didn't really want it to be something where if I messed it up more, it was going to impact the later rounds. So that was like my thinking, but it was like quick thinking in the fight. So I kind of just told myself to not use it. But no, I still have no idea when it happened, honestly.
And I know you're getting antsy to get back into training, but is it hard to be able to tell? Is it too early to be able to tell when you'd be able to compete again?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to tell. I know that I'm recovering really quickly, said the doc. I like still work out and do everything that I can, even when I am hurt. So I've always found that that's made injury recovery happen a lot quicker for me. I eat real good and don't really like go crazy or anything on the weekends. So, no, I would guess that April would be semi optimistic as far as my comfort level goes with having a full training camp and everything like that, especially because my next fight could be a really big one.
And yeah, before we talk about the bantamweight division, I wanted to get your opinion because obviously it's been a wild couple of days in the MMA world. USADA has split with the UFC. Wanted to get your reaction and if you think it's going to impact you guys in any way.
Uh, I don't really know what goes on in the world too much, which is kind of the way I prefer to live. But I did see something about USADA. I don't know all of the details about that, but yeah, I hope that they have someone else, like another company in mind that they plan on using because I definitely don't want this thing to turn into a free for all where people get to take whatever they want. I don't think that the UFC wants that either or will allow that. So yeah, I guess I don't really know the details of the USADA thing. I know that the guy that comes and tests me, whenever he comes and tests me, I really like that guy, so I guess I'll miss him.
That means I'm assuming he wasn't coming in odd hours like he does, like they do for other fighters.
No, he comes pretty early for me. I mean, it's like
Okay.
between like 6 and 8, but I don't mind. I'm kind of more of a morning person, anyways.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I'm sure they're gonna get somebody else. I mean, that's what Dana said that they're gonna work with somebody else. He was just not happy with the way they went out about with it, and there's supposed to be some sort of like scrum, I think, in less than an hour or something like that. So more details will unveil, but thought I'd get your opinion. But let's dive into the bantamweight division. Now, of course, you're talking about hopefully targeting the first quarter of the year to return. But a lot of things are happening. First of all, Sean O'Malley is the new bantamweight champion. I know you had picked Aljamain Sterling. So what was your reaction when Sean O'Malley knocked him out?
It was pretty awesome and pretty inspiring. Obviously I was there, so yeah, it was. I don't think anyone really saw that coming, so that was pretty cool. The way that he got to be champ, like that's a really awesome feeling. So I'm really happy for him. I think that once you get past kind of the Malibu's Most Wanted thing that Sean O'Malley kind of has going on with his aesthetic, I think that he's a fairly smart guy, and I think that he's, like he's funny and reasonable and pretty honest as far as I can kind of tell. He has a really smart coach too. That dude Tim seems like a really smart guy. So, Sean O'Malley is kind of a diversifying guy in terms of who he attracts as fans, but like I said, I think that once you hear his interviews and you start to watch him a little bit, I don't think that he's that bad of a dude. So I'm kind of cool with him being champ, to be honest.
And yeah, because you had said before that I think I don't want to like misquote you, but you said like kind of like your heart is going with Sean O'Malley, like you wanted him to win, but you thought Aljamain was going to win. What is it because he's a big star and he's going to bring more eyes to the division? Like, why did you want him to win that fight?
I don't know that it's because I think he's a big star, although I suppose that he is. I don't. So not to go off on too much of a tangent about stuff, but for me, martial arts is a very sacred thing. It's something that I hold really, really near and dear to my heart. The entertainment piece to the whole entire martial arts, I know, is an important factor in it becoming very popular in the way that it has in the last few years. So I'm definitely not hating or anything like that on the entertainment piece, but it isn't a piece that I think about often because, like I said, like this like martial arts thing that I've been doing, fighting that I've been doing for almost most of my life now is a sacred thing. It's been like my best friend for a really long time. It's been the way that I've been able to figure out the world more, figure out more about myself. And it goes like way, way past like being a star or anything like that. So, I guess as far as views goes, which is not highest priority on my mind, if I'm being very honest, my performances are number one, which like include winning and me being able to express myself in a manner that I think is exciting and that I think is efficient and all of that stuff is like highest on my priority list. But I suppose yes, as like star stuff goes, which I have a really poor idea of like how that relationship works with the rest of the world because I kind of am maybe a little bit more of a loner and a little bit more of like a different thinker than I feel like the rest of the world is. But yeah, I suppose for like as a fan, I guess for those people, it's a lot more exciting. I don't know.
All right, fair enough. And it appears the Marlon Vera rematch is what he wants and what the UFC also wants. What are your thoughts on Marlon Vera getting the title shot?
Yeah. I mean, Marab's obviously the guy that everyone says should be the guy that gets the title shot, right? But I think that he did make the UFC pretty upset with the way that he handled him and Aljamain's little side deal. Like I know that if I was running a business and I had a promotion and that thing was my baby, and people were kind of doing like little side ideas that weren't ideas that I had, that wouldn't fly with me really too much either. So, that's the reason that I think Cheeto's getting the shot over Marab is because, for that reason. So as far as Cheeto goes, yeah, that's, I guess, fine. Who else do they have? I suppose, I definitely believe 100% that would be me if my arm wasn't messed up. But yeah, that's kind of the way that the stars lined up, and good for Cheeto. The stars really had to line up for him to get a title shot this quick after getting beat, pretty significantly by me. So yeah, so I guess good for him. I'm not really going to hate on the stars lining up for someone else. Maybe they'll line up good for me when I come back too.
And yeah, I mean, it's not official, but I see Marab and Cejudo kind of chirping at each other. Cejudo telling them sign the contract. So obviously, it seems like the UFC is angling for that fight. So if it's Marab and Henry, not sure what Aljamain's doing if he's going to move up to 45. He was talking about how Holloway would be interesting and whatnot. So how about you? I know it's going to be a minute before you come back, but who do you see as a potential comeback fight, and would you be interested in rebooking that Umar Nurmagomedov fight?
I don't think it's an outlandish thing for me to ask for a title fight when I get back. You know, like it's really interesting just to, you know, hear kind of the rhetoric in the last fight of mine. But it's like, man, like that's fighting, dude. Like, look at all the people that get hurt in their fights. Some of them continue to fight, and then some of them don't get to, you know. And I was kind of in the middle where it wasn't like I blew out my knee like Fiziev, and I wasn't able to fight anymore. Like that would have been a really major bummer. It also wasn't just like I kind of like tweaked something a little bit and really wasn't, yeah, like it really wasn't that big of a deal until afterwards. Like it wasn't that. It impacted the way that the fight went. And it took me a little bit to kind of come to terms with that because I'm just the type of guy that takes a ton of responsibility, like an unreasonable amount of responsibility for myself and the way that things play out for me. So, like, coming to terms with the fact that that fight played out in a boring way, because it was boring, you know, I'm not going to lie about that. But it played out that way because I was unable to use the weapon that, like, is one of a few that I get to use in a combat scenario. So I definitely don't think it's an outlandish thing for me to ask for a title shot. I think that that's, if Cheeto wins or if O'Malley wins, what's a better fight for me to even come back to? The most exciting fight in the division right now is me versus O'Malley. That's the fight that people want to see. People don't really want O'Malley to fight. Like, I can't imagine a better fight, a more entertaining fight than me and O'Malley. If Cheeto wins, which I don't call fights anymore because they've ruined my self-esteem because I'm always wrong, so I just don't make fight predictions anymore. But if Cheeto does win, which maybe he will, maybe he won't, um, I just kind of smoked him not too long ago. Like earlier this year, smoked him. So I don't really see how it is that I could even come back to not a title fight in some regards. Obviously, a lot can play out in the time that I'll be out, but I'm not out for a year. I don't think it's an outlandish thing or a tough sell for me to ask for a title fight when I get back.
And yeah, look, timing is everything in the UFC. Look at the Abu Dhabi card, right? I mean, the cards have completely shuffled. It's about who's willing to step up. And now all of a sudden, Dana's like, Hamzat and Kamaru Usman is a number one contender fight when you've got Dricus du Plessis, who's a clear cut number one contender. So timing is everything. And I know you said you're not a prediction guy, and I'm not going to try to ruin your self esteem, but I wanted to ask you about, Cejudo and who was the other person? Somebody else was saying that they picked. Oh, it was Aljamain. So Aljamain and Henry Cejudo both picked Marlon Vera to beat Sean O'Malley. Does that surprise you that they picked him?
No, not I don't know. So I do know that styles make fights, right? Like I could tell you that what Sean does really well is he distance manages super well, and he's a sniper, and he must hit pretty hard because he's knocked a lot of guys out. That's what Sean does really well. Outside of that, those are mostly his ways of winning. He doesn't win in too many other fashions. He doesn't submit people. He doesn't take people down. He doesn't typically like outpoint people. He gets in fights, and he manages distance and hits people, you know, from space really, really good. Cheeto's a tough guy to knock out. I don't know if he's ever been finished. He's a tough guy to actually hit really clean, anyways, and he hits probably hard. My guess would be that he hits harder than O'Malley, because he's just kind of a dense looking guy. He did throw like one punch on the glove of mine where I was like, oh, good thing my hand was up for that one. But I do know that Cheeto is a dense, durable guy, and that guy typically does better than most people think against the, you know, finessey, long range sniper guy. So stylistically, it wouldn't really surprise me too much if Cheeto wins. But like I said, it's like a flip of the coin, you know. It feels like nowadays with all of these upsets that are happening.
I'm not any better at predictions, by the way. My track record for this year sucks. So if that's going to make you feel better. But we've seen how you and Cheeto Vera played out. How about you and O'Malley? How do you feel like stylistically that fight would look like?
He's not going to be able to distance manage his way. This is the reason that he's not calling for the fight, you know, like, or at least when my name was brought up, it was just overlooked almost immediately. Like, obviously I'm hurt, but it was just overlooked immediately, is because and Sean's been really open about thinking and being this way too, is that he wants the easier fights. The reason that Cheeto is an easier fight is because Sean will not be able to distance manage against me as well. Me being tall, rangy, and having really good footwork, the same exact way that he does. I think that I grapple a lot better than O'Malley does, and I think that as far as if the fight goes to be a really long, like if it goes all 5 rounds, I'm very good at putting points on the board, and O'Malley isn't as good at point scoring and putting points on the board. The way that Sean O'Malley would have to beat me is how he beat Sterling, is by knocking me out, and I'm very good at not getting knocked out. So that's how that fight would play out, I think. Like, I really hope that fight happens. It'll be a really awesome fight. One, stylistically, it would be awesome. He does certain things that I do really well. We both kind of could play off of that and see who's better at those things. And yeah, it would be a badass fight. So I hope that it happens, honestly.
Would that fight still excite you as much if it was a non-title fight?
Not as much. No, I want to be world champ. Like, I want to fight the best of the best. And if Cheeto beats O'Malley, then he's not the best of the best. So it would be world title is what I'm asking for.
And you talked about the grappling, and I know you got criticism for that Rob Font win. You've already addressed that. But is part of you like kind of proud to show off like the improvements in your grappling? Because if you look at some of your recent losses, the TJ Dillashaw fight, I know that irked you because it was that little control time that made the difference. The Sterling loss. So for you to show the improvements in your grappling, was that nice for you when you watch back?
It was all right, I guess. Like, it could have been so much better. Like, if I would have had, I believe, 2 arms in that fight, it would have been a finish, no doubt. Like, I can really, really beat people up usually when I get them down. Granted, I have to be able to hit them with both of the things. Like, like, it's just difficult to do with just one of the things that you could hurt someone with when they're down, since we can't knee to the face or kick to the face. I would have liked to show a lot more, but like, that's one of those that I just kind of got to let like go over my shoulder and just let it be what it is, because that's something that was completely out of my control, and that I would have, like, who can prepare for things like that. But as far as like ground control goes, me and Ryan Hall have been working together a lot over the last few years. Me and my wrestling coach have been working a lot through the last few years, and my grappling is very good. And I will attribute that a lot to my wrestling coach and a lot to Ryan, because those guys are phenomenal coaches. Like, I've never met Banks is a really great coach. Banks is my wrestling coach, but Ryan has been doing jiu-jitsu for an incredibly long amount of time, and he's just such a good teacher and really, really, really knows what he's doing on the ground. And yeah, I would have liked to show it off more, but I got to show some of it off, I suppose.
And I brought up Aljamain Sterling earlier. Do you think, now that it seems like he's not getting his title fight rematch, and if Merab fighting Henry Cejudo, do you think he sticks around in bantamweight? And if he does end up moving up to featherweight, do you see him doing well at 145?
I have no idea, because I don't think he has any idea either. I think that like, he's just, I don't know, he seems like he doesn't know what to do, so I couldn't even take a crack at it, because I just don't think he even knows what he's thinking.
Do you see a potential rematch with him happening at all at any point in your career?
Potentially. Like I said, I think that it depends on what he's doing. Yeah, it's a lot to think about, honestly, because it's just like, you can't think like 3-4 months ahead in this sport, really. So he has to decide what he does or is doing, and then I guess I would have to start playing with that idea in my head, but I don't know.
All right, I'll leave you with one more, and I appreciate your time. You talked about April potentially. That's right around UFC 300. So, ideal world, what would your return fight look like? And do you have kind of like a timeline that you'd prefer?
I'm definitely gonna not come back when my arm isn't completely healed. That would be silly, because I see that even if you go into a fight a little bit, however, you're still gonna get shit on, even if it's bad, even if you have a great excuse for it. So I'm gonna make sure that I go into the fight completely healthy, completely good, whenever that is. I can't think of too many other people that deserve a title shot over me outside of Marab, and he's booked for a fight. So I'm, like, I'm going to ask for a title fight when I get back. People are going to criticize that because of the last fight. And I'm not going to sound like a broken record and try to convince people that, there's a significant injury that happened. So that's where I am, is hopefully I'll come back to a title fight. These two, O'Malley and Cheeto, will fight in January. And then whenever the winner wants to fight again, maybe the summer or late spring, we could fight.
All right, there you have it. Well, Cory, I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much for your time. Wishing you a speedy recovery and looking forward to your return.
Cool. Later. Nice talking to you.